So thank you everyone for tuning in today. Thanks Joanna and Callen for coming on as well. I think good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I know it's morning for people on the west side of the world, evening for you, Callen and Joanna, and midday for European time zones. To provide a really kind of brief context and background, which I'm sure Callen and Joanna will go into kind of detail in a short while, but a forum post was recently created, specifically a DRC by Joanna and Callen, really diving into the detail behind a proposed revitalized second term of the Ops subDAO, something that I think the community were particularly excited about. I'll let Callen and Joanna go into the depths of it later on, but I'm equally excited about having them here to discuss this and the role it may play over the next potential 18 months. Just really quickly, for those new here, just a few housekeeping rules as usual. Let's keep questions until the end if you're looking to be brought on stage, and feel free to just raise your hand to ask that question. Or if you're not comfortable coming onto the stage, then by all means just post the questions in the kind of community town hall chat that everyone's just commenting on right now, which would be great. I know some of the audience have been actively engaging directly already about the DRC with Callen and Joanna, which is great to see. So Callen, Joanna, let's just start with, I guess, brief introductions about yourselves, really kind of how long you've been in the ecosystem for, and then we can kind of dive into the depths of the proposal. So when you're ready, one of you, do you want to start first?
I can go. I've been around for a little while. I originally got to learn more about dYdX through a research report that I did that was funded by the grants program, and it was actually about this process of decentralizing operations, of like transforming organizations. So that was a super interesting report. I got to know a few of the community members through that. And then, participated in DOT version 1.0 and kind of oversaw that with the knowledge I'd gained from the report. And really keen to kind of continue supporting this initiative and continue working with the community for, the potential version 2 of this project. It's been really nice. In the last few weeks, I've spoken to quite a few more of you. And just want to say thanks for like being really welcoming and really supporting our efforts with this proposal. I've been really impressed with like this culture here of being really thoughtful, really having insightful critiques, but also having this bias towards action. So that's just been, delightful, and looking forward to working with you guys more and answering your questions in this session.
Cool. Hey everyone, my name is Callen, and I've been around sort of the dYdX ecosystem for a good year and a half now, I would say. Working at Winsmute, sort of handling all the governance side of things. And for those who don't know, Winsmute is an investor and market maker on the platform. So we just wanted to kind of like get our hands dirty, see how we can contribute to the governance side. And it's led to quite a few proposals, but also just really connecting with the dYdX community. I've had the pleasure of working with Joanna on DOT 1.0, as she's mentioned, and, we've worked together to put forward this proposal that, has had good reception from the community, which we appreciate.
Awesome. Appreciate those introductions, guys. I guess we can really dive straight into it then. Let's just start off with a really broad question, like what was the rationale behind the dYdX Operations subDAO V2 post?
Yeah, so I really feel like, the timing was right with this one. We're coming towards the end of the first term for Ops DAO, so that's ending officially on June 19th. At the same time, we were getting more public information getting released from trading, also the foundation and blog posts and governance forum posts, with a kind of vision of what could happen for the next 6, 12, 18 months, really going towards decentralized version of the dYdX protocol. And we just really felt that the Operations subDAO is in a good place to kind of take the lead on some of these activities that were outlined regarding the indexer, decentralized front ends, providing user support, and really scaling up and kind of having a more ambitious version of this subDAO where we're really trying to handle that function of providing the technical operational support that dYdX DAO needs to kind of lead, a fully decentralized version of the dYdX protocol, looking ahead to the potential launch of V4. So that's kind of like the high level vision, how we saw our contribution to that.
Awesome. And kind of just running towards the end of the proposal, obviously currently it's kind of you two, I guess, is the trustees thus far. You mentioned new trustees and an enforcer. I guess for questions that were brought up in the kind of forum posts and what's been addressed by you guys, obviously today in a response, like what's the action plan there?
Sure. So for those who don't, February will be stepping down as well as George, who is enforcer of 1.0. And given the request of $6.6 million, we thought it's like only right and secure to increase the multi-sig from a 2 of 3 to a 3 of 5, just to make sure that the community's funds are a bit more safeguarded and more people to scrutinize the transactions and all that sort of jazz. So for Joanna and ourselves who are remaining as trustees, we're looking to add 3 more trustees to the multi-sig and then looking to get an additional enforcer. We have been in discussion with a few community members. However, we are still looking for 1 or 2 more trustees and an enforcer. So if anyone from the community who hasn't reached out yet, please feel free to reach out to either Joanna and I, and we can organize a call to discuss things.
Awesome. That's great. And in terms of kind of timeline, Callen, is there kind of a timeline on this specifically? Or are we still is it still tentative, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like ideally, probably we would want this sorted by the end of the week or at least early next week. And this is to get things moving with, .1.0 ending on June 19th. We still need on-chain proposals. And from a legal standpoint, we need a snapshot to enforce these new trustees and enforcers for 2.0. I think we'd hopefully want to have this finalized by end of week. So yeah, if anyone is really wanting to contribute to 2.0, please stick your hand up. We can have a chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Callen. And I guess taking a step back to the start of the proposal, which I know a few people have had comments on, and it's really a new thing, I guess, within the dYdX DAO specifically. You guys want to hire an operations lead, a technical project manager, or a technical project lead, and a site reliability engineer. I guess, what was the decision-making process behind this?
I mean, I think, there's no one right way to kind of set up a subDAO. We thought, for the mission that we want to work towards, this configuration with the 3 roles, operations lead, site reliability engineer, and a technical project manager would be ideal. So to just briefly kind of explain, what are their functions, what are their main responsibilities? For the ops lead, part of that is kind of continuing developing operational excellence, which was a focus already in DOT version 1. But it's getting much more practical. So kind of with the last mandate, we had a playbook that was developed. Now we want to really put these principles into practice and continue to iterate on them and develop them. And the idea with that is with this subDAO, we're kind of creating a set of best practices. We're creating a model that future subDAOs created by other community members that they can learn from and hopefully innovate on as well. A second aspect, and I think this is, really important, comes from this culture that we have here in the dYdX community, where transparency is super important, accountability is really important. An important contribution for the ops lead for this coming mandate would be to engage an external auditing firm. And so that would allow us to have an objective performance and financial audit of everything that the subDAO is doing. And so then the third kind of important part for this role would be, really helping the subDAO scale into this new function of really providing that technical operational support, providing that infrastructure for a decentralized version of the dYdX protocol. So that means overseeing the technical talent, these other 2 roles, and onboarding and managing vendors and everything that kind of goes along with supporting those processes. So I'm actually just going to quickly drop the job description in the chat so you can get a closer look at what does that role entail. So that you should be able to see that there. So for the site reliability engineer, I think the 3 main things that this person would be responsible for is really ensuring that we have stability, availability, and security of the services that are getting provided. So ensuring that everything is really performant and predictable. There would be maybe further development, automation of different services. Basically, just maintaining really high quality, enterprise grade, scalable production systems. Improving processes, and very importantly, like work on proactively identifying any issues that might come up to just make sure that everything is running smoothly pretty much all the time. Then the technical project manager, this is an interesting role because it's technical, but it's also quite a social role. So the idea is this person would be really connecting the ops subDAO with this wider community in the ecosystem of builders, validators, front-end operators, indexer operators. Really just making sure that they have everything that they need to kind of get onboarded into the ecosystem, that the rollout of their projects happens super smoothly in terms of like technical requirements, that they know kind of everything they need to know. And so this person, I think, is really going to be an important player, just working again towards that decentralization of protocol. So yeah, that's kind of my summary of like these different roles. I'm just going to get the other descriptions as well so you guys can see that in more detail. Yeah, so just dropping those links in. Yeah, so we're still, promoting these roles and trying to get as many high quality applicants in as possible. So if you know anyone who would be ideal for any of these positions, really encourage you to let them know that we have these openings, encourage them to apply. We're looking at different ways we can advertise these roles and really just want to make sure that we have a good pipeline of talent coming in for these. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's really, really exciting. It's obviously the first subDAO currently that's obviously going to be hiring FTEs in the sense of contributors to the DAO. So really excited to see that process kick off. Cool. Let's move on from there. If anyone's got any questions on that, feel free to drop in the chat as well, or put your hand up at the end. Let's move on to kind of a few questions that people had in the ecosystem. I know there was some on trustee compensation. What's the general thoughts here?
Sure. So I think there's actually a question from Mutable Lawyer, just touching on, why is the trustee compensation low in comparison to the other roles? And honestly, this pretty much just comes from Joanna and I's experience as being like a trustee on .1. We also want to be conscious of the cost to the DAO. And, with our experience, we believe that the $2,000 per month is pretty adequate. This was also increased from 1,500 to 2,000 from .1.0 to .2.0. And this is honestly just to, reflect the expected increase in workload for trustees over the next 18 months. And we think, this is pretty substantial. We can also potentially increase or decrease this if the community or current trustees or future trustees feel that the workload is too high. But honestly, trustees are really there to be a support role for the DAO, but also make sure that the dYdX Operations Trust is fulfilling its mandate and purpose, and really just helping the operations lead once they're hired with any documentation that is required, and possibly stepping up, in uncertain times where maybe the mandate of the dYdX Operations Trust is not being fulfilled. And then on top of that, they also need to be around to sign multi-sig transactions. So yeah, with all that in mind, and from personal experience, we believe that the $2,000 a month is fairly adequate. However, we do appreciate the community's, leniency towards wanting to increase this.
Thanks for that, Callen. Cool. I guess next question that came in was really around the kind of timeline of funding. Obviously, the funding to date has been kind of a 6-month funding capacity for a lot of these funding rounds. What was the thinking around the 18-month funding period instead of the usual 6 or 12-month period?
Sure. So I think it really boils down to dYdX being at a critical juncture in its timeline, with people potentially launching very soon. We ultimately didn't want to have the community dealing with the renewal of dYdX Operations Trust, and also the potential hiring of new people, 12 months down the line, when it may take a couple of months for these new full-time equivalents to be onboarded, fully understand both dYdX, the ecosystem, and the community, it just seemed like it would have been a bit of a burden and wasted resources at that time. So we thought, having the 18 months was really needed to attract top-tier talent, but also ensure there's solid development progress within the operations subDAO. The longer the term, the higher the job security there is for applicants. So I guess, that's probably our main reason behind that. We just want stability and for, people who are applying to have that sense of job security.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fair enough. And I guess based on this, then there was additional comments that furthered from these comments on the DRC, but will additional staff be required during this 18-month term?
Yeah, this was a really good question from some community members. So yeah, basically, what if we realize that, hey, things are going really well, we want to expand even more, let's add more people to the team. So the budget does include a buffer. Right now, we're not really planning explicitly for that scenario where we would want to hire more people, but, things can change. So we do have that buffer and, potentially, that would be able to cover it. If we see that we want to hire more people and it seems like the buffer would be exceeded by that, one approach would be to just shorten the budget timeline, and we would kind of have a governance process to make sure this is, all approved and the community knows what's going on with this change and how the budget would be used and change in the runway. So, for example, you could shorten it from 18 to 14 months, let's say, and then just the request for another round of funding and request for approval of another mandate based on everything that's happened would just take place at the end of that shortened period. Also just important to note in kind of another scenario where, we wouldn't use the buffer, we wouldn't hire more people, or just any scenario where we don't use the full funds, they're of course going to be returned to the dYdX treasury.
That makes sense. Thank you, Joanna. Okay, last few things from my end was kind of around compensation and the benchmarkings. Like, what were your thoughts behind the benchmark compensation there for the three FTEs?
A couple of community members, I guess, that were, looking at the material that we referenced in the original proposal, saying like, hey, there's a bit of a difference between, what people at MakerDAO, Lido, or Sushi are being paid. However, I think it's important to understand that these DAOs have been operating under a very decentralized structure for many years. This has allowed them to, iterate, improve based on feedback and experience. And these DAOs also receive critical income, which is used to offset the spend of the native token. This provides more stability for contributors. This is very different in the case of dYdX. We had DOT 1.0, but DOT 2.0 really stepped it up a notch. And hiring of 3 individual full-time equivalent contractors is a big change for the DAO. And I think, to be honest, our compensation structure is fairly competitive, especially when you take into account, the dYdX token compensation.
Just lost you a second, Callen. Just lost you a second. Sorry.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you there.
Where did I cut out? Sorry.
I think you basically said it was competitive, and then we just lost you.
Yeah, sure. So I guess we would say that the compensation that we put forward is fairly competitive, especially when you take into consideration the dYdX token incentives on top of the salaries that have been described. While there aren't clear figures and we haven't fully ironed them out, there is a rough range for the operations lead to be incentivized with 20 to 30,000 dYdX for that full 18-month contribution. For technical project manager and the site reliability engineer is around 30 to 40,000 dYdX. So I think, taking that into account, it really kind of brings us closer to the benchmarks that maybe these more well-established and, long-time existing DAOs already have.
And that's just confirming that's obviously on top of, let's say, USDC salary for the 12 months.
Yeah, that's correct. So everyone still has their base salaries, and then we'll have extra, incentives and dYdX tokens for alignment, but also a nice little bonus for the applicants that want to apply.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And just last question from me really is around the sort of interview process and selection process for the advertised roles. Like, will there be like a process? What will that look like, etc.?
Yeah, I think, given it's a long contract, an 18-month contract, so vetting it's really, really important in this situation. So what we are working with, we kind of come up with a multi-stage vetting process for each of these three roles. They all include a practical kind of assessment, so like a take-home task for the potential ops leads. For the technical roles, most likely we would have a kind of live technical assessment so that we can really check their competency and make sure that they're right for the position. We'll also be just seeking kind of support from other stakeholders in the ecosystem to kind of aid us in that decision-making process. Once those new hires are in place, we're also going to just share documentation of that overall process with the community again for transparency purposes. So that's what's kind of coming up for us.
Awesome. Really appreciate you covering those questions. I guess before we open the floor to anything or questions on the side, is there anything else you guys want to touch on or cover from any other questions that have come up on the forum?
Yeah, I guess for anyone who maybe didn't have time to check it out, we did post a reply covering some of the questions. Some of them we've already addressed in this call just now. But there's, some other details that we covered. Again, like thanks so much to the community members who made those really thoughtful requests for clarification. So yeah, I just recommend going into that. I'm going to link that reply directly now in the chat. And yeah, just if you have any further follow-up questions to that, feel free to share with us either on the forum or we can kind of go into them now. Yeah, let me just get that link.
Awesome. Thanks.
But yeah, happy to go into questions from the audience.
Real. Right. Has anyone got any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. I can bring you up on the stage. Alternatively, feel free to just ask on the side and we can just address them from the side. I guess just one from me, Callen and Joanna, kind of, I guess, providing consensus has been reached and everyone's kind of comfortable with the proposal. What's the next steps from your end? When is a potential snapshot? What are you kind of thinking here?
Sure. I think focusing on the budget, where there seems to be like a pretty good consensus around that, we will look to initiate a snapshot by Wednesday, latest Thursday. And then I think if everything goes well and we can get, some numbers for the trustees and the enforcer, we will probably include this in the on-chain vote, which ratifies both the budget and the new trustees and enforcer. But yeah, next steps would be initiating a snapshot probably tomorrow.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Cool. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask? We'll give it a couple of minutes. Mo, we can bring you up. Okay, Mo, you should be on the stage. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I have a question regarding the trustee role, as in what is the profile for the candidate, since I'm very interested in applying for being a trustee. So I would like to have more info if there's anything predefined by now. Thank you.
Sorry,
So yeah, I think there's no strict role. Obviously, we'll be looking at, contributions to dYdX. I think having an established reputation in DeFi can be important for the role. Other things we might consider is your location geographically, so that just the practical aspect of like signing transactions, just so that it can happen in a kind of timely manner. But we're quite open, so I would just say that's great that you're interested, and we'll definitely get in touch, and we want to just speak to as many potential trustees as possible. So definitely, you can expect to hear from us. Anyone else who's interested, please just let us know. It would be great to meet as many of you as possible. So yeah.
Thank you for answering. Yeah,
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mo. Cool. I noticed a question in the kind of the town hall chat about the Hedgies NFT. We can kind of speak about this if you like in the Discord chat. We'll keep this conversation specific to the Ops subDAO proposal, but it's a good question, and I'm sure members of the Hedgies can probably address that as well. any other questions relating to the DRC? Yeah, Rio Vavoshka. General consensus in the community is that trustees should come from the community, not professional governance workers from other projects. Any thoughts on that, Joanna, Callen?
Yeah, I guess I can touch on that. I completely understand that consensus. However, I do want to emphasize that this is a large amount of funds that these multi-stake and trustees will be responsible for. So I definitely think that we will definitely prioritize people that have contributed to dYdX and our community members. We also definitely value reputation and also I guess work throughout the whole of DeFi. I think it's important to have reputable people on the multi-stake just to ensure safety of funds. John and I were actually speaking about this other day, and we think one of the perfect places to slot in a community member is definitely on the enforcer side, as the enforcer is really in there to make sure that the mandate of the trust is being fulfilled, and there is constant communication between the trust and the community and the ops lead. So we definitely think the enforcer is a perfect place for a community member.
Yeah, and no one is really better placed to do that because community members know the level of communication that this community finds appropriate, that understands how to just ensure that the subDAO is really deeply connected and continues to work really actively within the community. Agree with what Callen said. But we'll be in conversation about this. You'll hear from us in terms of candidates, I think let's just keep discussing. And again, just to plug, please, I'll send I'll type the email if you want to apply as a trustee. We do have a hiring email address. I'm just going to type that in here now. So this for a trustee or enforcer, we have this email address. I'm just typing it in. It's just hiring at dYdX subDAO. So just drop a short email in there and we'll be in touch. Some of you have already done that. That's great. If you've DM'd me already, you don't need to do that. We're already in touch. But yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your comments as well. Okay. Short but sweet, but I think got straight to the point is what everyone hoped for. That was fantastic. Joanna, Callen, thank you so much for answering those questions and staying around late your evening to engage with the community and explaining everything. Thank you to everyone in the audience for supporting and providing your thoughts and feedback and insights. I think it really is an exciting time for the dYdX ecosystem and really looking forward to seeing everyone actively engage in this DRC snapshot in the near future. I think a reminder is that this is being recorded and we'll publish this hopefully on YouTube really by tomorrow at the latest. And as Callen and Joanna said, Callen, Joanna, did you say the snapshot was tomorrow or Thursday?
Hopefully tomorrow, yes.
Okay, brilliant. Fantastic. Thanks again. And we will see everybody next time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.